Hey, yo, the Columbus Crew are out of the MLS Cup playoffs. Atlanta and Vancouver stubbornly force Miami and LAFC into game threes. And Manchester City are undefeated no longer as Pep's men fall to the mighty Cherries. That and much more here on Monday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome into Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from everyone's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Robert Kerr, happy to be joined by my traveling partner, Mr. Jason Davis. Hello.
I'm not traveling with you. I did travel, hence the slightly different setup. This is Davis Broadcast HQ South. Pretty far south. I'm in Puerto Rico right now with family, with my wife's family. So I'm glad to be here, able to do Morning Kick Around with you, Robert.
We've returned to the left side of the weekly calendar, unfortunately. The first Monday of November. How you feeling in general? You doing all right? You're all settled down there?
Well, we got the time change, which is not a thing here. So you have to do that mental math. I know it shouldn't be that complicated. Just, hey, the time didn't change in Puerto Rico, but it did for Robert and for everybody in America. Shows at 9:30. Here I need to do, just silly stuff like that, Robert. But I'm on time. I'm here. I did it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, that is some mental gymnastics, because just simply turning the clock back an hour was difficult here, but to go to a place while the clocks are traveling and then going to a place that isn't changing them, that's
yes,
it is some mental hurdles there.
Something
and before we get into our segments, I want to give a big shout out to Nate in the comments, who listens every show, sends in some fun comments, sent us an email. He is sending the link to the show out to all of his buddies. He even sent us in the receipts that you requested, Jason. He was talking up the show, telling his friends all about it. And if you want to do similar, morningkickaround@gmail.com.
There you go.
Tell your family and friends and send us the receipt. You can also get a hold of us online at mkickaround on Instagram and X going to give it to you. Oh. And then ultimately, the number one thing to do, like and subscribe to Morning Kick Around. The numbers are pumping up. We're averaging about 75 or so new subscribers per week. So we are on our way to that first real big goal of 500, and then our eventual goal for 2025 to reach the 50K.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, love the 90s hip hop reference, Robert. Thank you for that. And we're going to work more of those into Morning Kick Around as we go forward. The NBA Ultras will be able to make a list. All right, Robert mentioned DMX. Now what? What's next?
X going to give it to you. We're going to bring you today's long balls. Here we go. All right, long ball number one, the big story here on Monday morning. The number 2 team in Major League Soccer upset by the New York Red Bulls. Some drama out east on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, this is, it is a surprise. I mean, I think we talked about our brackets. I had chalk.
We went chalk all the way down, and this is not chalk.
We were chalk, and we should have known better. I mean, I had people saying, hey, this is MLS. You never know what can happen. There could be an upset. We could get a 7 seed in the final. I was like, nah, we're not going to get a 7 seed in the final. But the New York Red Bulls, they executed a plan in Columbus. They had a bit of luck last night at Red Bull Arena. I think that's fair to say. Things kind of broke their way a couple of times. Columbus was fairly wasteful in front of goal when they had opportunities. Carlos Coronel was very good when he had to be. I think, this is well-deserved from the Red Bulls. And, Wilfred Nancy, you could tell he was cursing the soccer gods just up and down in his head last night at Red Bull Arena. So the champs are out. We are guaranteed a new champion, no repeat for the Crew.
Yeah, no repeat champions of Major League Soccer. Yeah, we should have known better. This is Major League Soccer, bro. They can't be a dynasty growing in the Midwest, can there? But so 2 games, we're very surprised. Obviously, very, very close close contest. This one of many contests over the weekend that ended in penalties. There was slight controversy with the penalty for New York Red Bulls at the 80th minute. It looked to be right on the edge, clearly a foul, hacked down by the Columbus defender. It's awarded. Was it Forsberg? His coming back into the Red Bull lineup here near the end of the season can't be overlooked. He was instrumental though, but goalie saves, missed chances. But talking to my my very good friend Luke, who is a absolute super fan of Columbus Crew, he was just saying that the swashbuckling football of Columbus that they've seen all year, or after a year or two under Nancy, just wasn't really there. They were a little bit more tentative than they have been.
They navigated that. They navigated some things in the summer that I didn't know if replacing Aiden Morris was going to be as easy as it looked for Columbus. They sold him to Middlesbrough. He had been so important to the championship team. I was like, oh, that's a big blow. They didn't really have too many issues in the regular season. They finished second in the conference behind a very almost unbeatable Miami team for most of the year. It looked all good. But when it came down to playoff soccer, again, give Sandro Schwartz, a man who looks like he's about to I don't know, fuel an F1 car, as I think you said, Robert.
Yeah.
He's about to change some tires, man. He's got the gear going. Either that, or he looks like he's the team owner who's at the event afterwards, meeting all the sponsors, wearing all the team gear, that kind of thing, doing the interviews via on television. But Sandro Schwartz obviously had a plan. Again, it worked. He had some very good performances last night, and congratulations to the Red Bulls. Will this be the year that they finally get their championship, Robert?
Yeah, that brings me to the next question. I don't want to overlook Columbus Crew. They won the League's Cup. They played some of the most entertaining Major League Soccer I've seen. Really, for a long time, we were throwing them into the conversation of best ever team. It's got to be noted that this was their 50th game they've played in 2024. So maybe fatigue adding into the diminished swashbuckling play, perhaps. But
when you are that successful, I think it's a decent thing to point out here, Robert. When you are that successful as Columbus, how many finals were they in over like the last 18 months or something? Like, they were in all the finals and they kept going. Campeones Cup was part of that. League's Cup was part of that. They were just
Champions League.
Champions Cup. That's what they were constantly in the league because they're good. That's what good teams do. They play more games because they're in more tournaments until the end. And I don't know that it caught up with them, although it did feel, especially in that first leg in Columbus, that first game in Columbus, Robert, it did feel like the energy level had dropped for Columbus, and maybe it did catch up with them, especially against a team that is known for sort of pushing the envelope of pressure in New York Red Bulls.
And then I guess that's just a final note for Columbus. Will they keep their head coach? Will Wilfred Nancy stay in Ohio in 2025?
Yeah, that is the big question. Saint Etienne in France has been linked for a move. It's been a couple of weeks since that rumor dropped, Robert. And I have not yet seen any more movement on that. Of course, I'm not keeping my ear to the ground of what's happening in France. But, Wilfred Nancy, you couldn't be blamed if he says, hey, I achieved something in MLS. I won a championship. I put together a team that played some of the best soccer anybody's ever seen in that league. I get a chance to go home and coach in, what I'm sure is his dream, not his dream location. I'm sure he'd like to be at a better club than Saint Etienne. But of course, when you're in that position, you take what's on offer. It could be an entry to prominence in Europe for Nancy. And I think he deserves it. It would be a blow for Columbus, to say the least.
All right, moving on to the long ball number 2 of the day. 4 MLS sides advanced after 2 games, a clean sweep in this best of 3 series. LA Galaxy, Minnesota United, Seattle, and the aforementioned New York Red Bulls. Of these sides, which one of these the matchups was most impressive? LA Galaxy won 9-1 between the 2 games. Minnesota 2 games in penalties, and Seattle very tight margins there too.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Galaxy brilliant and Colorado overmatched. Minnesota did the job. I think that RSL was up for the fight a little bit. Chicho Arango dropping off a cliff for RSL was extremely poor for them. That really was a big blow. The way that game went down in Houston with Seattle, it was nuts. Of course, we had Ache being sent off after getting admonished. Did he get a yellow card on the kick from behind? He goes in,
He
kicks
smashed the guy.
kicks a Seattle player from behind. Referee's like, "Yo, bro, you can't do that." He decides that he's upset about the decision, which is wild to me, and then spits on the ground in the general direction of the referee. Now, he didn't spit at the referee, but it was clearly dissent on a level that goes beyond the pale. I have no idea why he thought he could get away with that, and it really did. It did, but you can't put it all on his shoulders, but you can make an argument that it undid Houston's season in that one moment.
I didn't enjoy the Houston players surrounding the referee after giving that red card either. That was very South American referee behavior there. And typically MLS referees get a little bit more reverence than that.
Well, the league has been pretty strong on the, what do they call it? Mass confrontation, right? They've been pretty strong on mass confrontation over the last couple of years, which I think has done a pretty decent job. I don't get too in my feelings about that kind of stuff. I do think the referees in general are treated pretty poorly. I mean, of course, bad referees, it's hard to say, hey, they deserve better when they're being bad referees. But in this case, no, there's no argument. Your guy just spit in the direction of the referee. That's not allowed, Robert. That's not allowed.
And then so LA Galaxy, got to say Ricky Puig, he's really grown on me. His is that a Dragon Ball or a Street Fighter celebration where he does the hands out like this, like the fire?
It's probably the former. I'm not up on my anime, Robert. You'll have to help me out with what's popular with the kids these days. What is it? One Punch Man? I don't know. What else is there? I don't know.
I know guys go Super Saiyan left and right in
there's that. There's that. I know people like Daryl DK are constantly talking about various anime that I'm not aware of. So again, it's a generational gap, I think.
He also talks about chewing on bottle caps. I remember Daryl DK, but
New
York Red Bulls. I wanted to ask you this: are they a Columbus bogey team or are they a legit contender for the MLS Cup?
That's the thing. I find it hard to believe that they're going to come out of that Eastern Conference. They do still have some good teams in front of them if they want to, break the curse of Red Bull and finally win an MLS Cup. They famously don't have one in their history, either as the Metro Stars or as Red Bull. And, we have one game left to determine who they're going to face in that matchup between Cincinnati and NYCFC. I think Cincinnati's a better team. They'll have home field advantage in a one-off. Remember, we go from the best of three to a one-off, Robert. I believe extra time is back in play. So, there's more. The parameters of this change. And can the Red Bulls do in one game in Cincinnati what they were able to do over two games against Columbus? But again, give them credit for winning in Columbus, which I think a lot of people didn't think was possible.
No, that was definitely a shocker. And I really did think that Columbus was in trouble after losing at home. And you're talking about the format. 3 of these matchups settled by penalties over the weekend. Lots of penalties. Do you think that these games would have benefited from having the extra time, or is it good to limit minutes?
Man, well, I if you're talking about the aggregate of these players and what they're doing over this period, I suppose you could argue extra time in every one of these games, because it's possible, would be too much. That being said, it does let you down a little bit. I mean, there's drama. Don't get me wrong. There's drama. And the way that it went in Houston, for example, with Christian Roldan's own goal that gives Houston an opportunity to go to a penalty kick shootout where ultimately they lose. You are watching the end of those games and thinking, okay, what are we going to get for added time? How is that going to impact what might happen? Trying to get to penalty kicks. Penalty kicks are not satisfying when it comes to determining the winner of a soccer game, Robert. but they are what we do. And we don't really have a better option right now unless MLS goes to the 30-yard kickoff, shootout or something like that, which I'm not even sure I want. I don't even want that. The 30-yard thing. No, no.
And so to wrap up this long ball number 2, the game 3s are this upcoming weekend, scattered over Friday and Saturday. And then for the teams that won and went through after 2 games, LA Galaxy, Minnesota United, Seattle, and New York Red Bulls, they will have to wait about 20 days for their next match in the conference semifinals. Long ball number 3, going across the pond, a weekend of upsets at the top of the English Premier League. Pep's men down by the Cherries. Let's start there.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? I mean, did you think that the Premier League was decided? Did you think that we wouldn't have any surprises? Did you think that it was going to be smooth sailing for a team like Manchester City through the remainder of the entire season? I mean, it's so early still, Robert, that you can't really draw any grand conclusions. But this is interesting. It definitely throws a wrinkle in what we imagine might happen. Obviously, Liverpool is the beneficiary here, but I give Bournemouth credit. I mean, again, I don't think anybody had them taking down City. Even this is not, nobody thinks of Bournemouth as sort of the whipping boy of the Premier League. They're not relegation fodder, but that still is. It still feels like a mountain that's almost impossible to climb for anybody at this point. The way that City has looked at various stages.
It's kind of wild how the tables have turned. Those South Coast teams, like the teams in the south of England, not famous for achievement in the game. At Southampton, probably the South's most accomplished team, longest history of success. And there's a lot of stories of Southampton giving teams like Brighton and Bournemouth a help when they were lower in the table. And Bournemouth having great success, certainly more than Southampton at the current time. Pep did kind of foreshadow this a bit. There was reports of him being worried about his injury list. John Stones, Diaz, obviously Rodri out for a long time, Grealish and Oscar Bob. So he was short in options, but they are, more flush with depth than probably any other team. But undone without those players. And I mean, it wasn't really all that fluky either.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I mean, look, doesn't really matter who you are. If you have an injury crisis, if you have 6, 7, 8 guys who are carrying injuries, it doesn't, depth can be an advantage, but it can't overcome all of that. So at this point, I do think there is something to be said for it's difficult. And it's not as though City is only focused on the league. I mean, this is a team that has designs on a Champions League title again. They did get knocked out of the League Cup, which I don't know. Is that a good thing? I guess probably at this point, Robert. I hate saying that, and there's always that question of whether or not these clubs prioritize a competition like the League Cup. But this is going to be. It's not going to be so easy for City to win it because we know that Liverpool's good. We know that Arsenal is good. So, and everybody in this league has a puncher's chance. It's not quite as far as parity, but it is something that City has to navigate.
Also notable, American midfielder Tyler Adams getting more action in this game. He came on right after Bournemouth got their go-ahead goal and able to do enough to keep the lead for Bournemouth. The other team lost at the weekend. Arsenal, they kicked off the week on Saturday morning early, and Newcastle got the first half goal and able to do their thing and hold on. And Arsenal, you'd say, looked pretty darn frustrated as that game wore on.
I mean, I think this, Arsenal is a little bit more fragile. If we're talking about the 3 title contenders, they're the ones that everybody thinks, not just because of maybe the depth of their squad. There's just something about Arsenal that feels fragile. And that's rough because they've finished second twice to City. They nearly did it last year. What was the gap? 2 points, Robert, last year?
I believe so.
There's no reason to doubt them really, except for they couldn't get past City. So you kind of go, okay, well, they're not good enough to do that. And now again, Liverpool under Arne Slot has looked so comfortable. I don't think they've slid into this new era without a hiccup at all, which is remarkable. Arsenal is a quality team that doesn't feel like they have the experience. Is that fair?
Composure.
Yeah, but where does that feeling that we think they lack composure come from? I mean, it's not just Arteta and his histrionics. It's something. There's something else about the group. Who is the clear leader in this team? I mean, is Declan Rice the leader? I mean, you're not looking at some of these guys and thinking, hey, that's the guy who takes charge. That's the guy who drives them forward. I mean, you talk about their center backs and how good they are, but do they feel like players who are like, this is my team and I'm going to lead us to the promised land?
I think that they may be prone to mistake. They've been a little bit unlucky with red cards, which has kind of got them agitated. But also, I mean, soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, is very revealing. Like, body language is so clear in how you play. There's no stoppages to compose yourself. As you're playing in a free, open game, you can read body language. And if someone is nervous or not comfortable, it's easy to say. And as that game wore on, and we've seen in other games, there's a level of nervousness and frustration and agitation you don't see from Liverpool and Manchester City. I think the what do you call it? The muscle memory of winning is more ingrained in the Liverpool and Man City squad. I guess the nagging feeling that they've come up short is in their muscle memory for Arsenal a little bit more. And it would take them becoming, I think, serial winners to have that comfort of, we're goal down. We have to score 2 goals in the next 10 minutes. And Manchester City, I mean, they've done that countless times with, the biggest titles on the line, and they always look within themselves. But the body language and the composure of Arsenal just isn't at that same level.
Well, you can't do it until you've done it. Like it's sort of like I can't get the job because I don't have the experience, but I can't get the experience because I can't get the job. The feels where Arsenal is stuck in this limbo between being a truly title contending Premier, I mean, they have contended, but a title winning Premier League side and entering a new era of glory, that they haven't had in 2 decades, and sort of dropping back into the pack and being not in turmoil, because I don't think that that's where they are, but are they significantly better in terms of what you think is possible than Tottenham? I mean, the performances and the results have been better than Tottenham the last couple of seasons, but if Arsenal, if Arsenal doesn't do it this season, it's not difficult to imagine them finishing 4th or 5th next year and Tottenham finishing above them, right? If just a couple of moves here or there, because the margins are smaller for Arsenal and Tottenham than they are for City, than they are for even Liverpool, who has found a way with their recruitment to be elite.
Yeah, it was notable that Thomas Partey played right back and Moreno was a little bit average in midfield. I think that had a little bit to do with it. There was a couple players out of position there, but fully agree with you on your note about Arsenal possibly slipping back, and then Chelsea are getting better. Who knows what happens with Tottenham? They're up and down each 45 minutes. And then Nottingham Forest, they might creep up and take somebody's top 4 position, maybe, right?
You mean at the end of this thing, the Nottingham Forest is going to be there? No, come on, Robert. I mean, this is the table deceiving us on some level, which is fine. I mean, look, Nottingham Forest can say we're in 3rd place after 10 matches of a Premier League season, and that's an achievement for Forest, right? Now, and based on the pace, 19 points from 10 matches, they're halfway home on absolute surety that they're not going down. That's all that matters for Forest. If they somehow sneak into the Conference League or something, they might have to shut down the town for days to have the parade. Like, it will be that big of an achievement. And it's considering last year, considering the coaching change. Now, some of us Americans are a little biased against Nuno because of how it went down with Gio, but considering this sense that Nuno was as much convenience and sort of part of a machine meant to wet some people's beaks around player acquisition as anything else. That's what sticks to Nuno, right? Am I wrong about that? This is crazy. This is crazy.
The beneficiary of Manchester City and Arsenal taking a loss at the weekend. Liverpool returned to the top with a 2-1 victory over Brighton. The first half not so good for the Reds, but a classic Salah counterattack goal gets the 3 points. And the performance was very similar to how it's been, not spectacular, but doing enough to get the win.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's how you win a title, right? Is that when you're not at your best. We know that Brighton's a very good team, right? We know Brighton is not a pushover.
So many good players.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, navigating, I know we're going to keep saying this, but going from Potter to De Zerbi down to Hertzler, like, oh no, we're still gonna be better than people think we should be based on the fact that we're Brighton, right? But they keep finding players to make it work. I think we talked about this last week. A guy like Danny Welbeck playing a meaningful role in a team that's eyeing another European berth is something. Like, what is that? Is that something you had on your bingo card for the Premier League the last couple seasons? Probably not. So again, they're pretty good. Now, going to Anfield is not easy for anybody. I know we've already had one surprise there this season, but those are few and far between. So Liverpool doing what they need to do to get back top of the table.
And another thing that's somewhat shocking, after the match, Mo Salah took to X, formerly Twitter, to say, nothing matches this feeling. All teams win matches, but there's just only one champion at the end. But the part that's got people quaking and raising their eyebrows a little bit like this, he ends his message, "I will never forget what scoring at Anfield feels like."
Do you think that this is posturing to maybe nudge the club in a certain direction, Robert? Do you think that he has a sense that it might end, or is this, he's allowed to be sentimental? But people are going to read between the lines and pick apart the language because of his situation with his contract ending after the season.
Yeah, I missed a part that might put a little bit more context. It says, "No matter what happens, I will never forget." So that, to your point, is he might be nudging the board for a contract, no matter what happens, as if it is not decided yet.
Well, we said last week, and please go watch the video and give it a like and share it. We said last week, Mo Salah to Major League Soccer has a nice ring to it. Wouldn't that be nice?
It certainly would. I'm curious what market would be most appealing, or what city. I don't know why I said city or market. I don't like using that terminology for a city, but
well, I mean, look,
we joked about Cincinnati.
Soccer fans are just customers, Robert. I don't know what they're markets. This is
all
all business.
I don't like using that word, so I'm surprised I slipped it in there. I'm getting too industry like you.
There we go.
but realistically, which city or club would he fit in? I mean, any is probably the easy answer, but the best.
Well, okay. Well, let's do this. Let's say he's not going to go play for NYCFC just based on allegiances. That would be my guess. That would be a hard sell, I think. Could he end up at Red Bull if they wanted to actually spend some money on a name DP and give Emil Forsberg another weapon? I mean, wouldn't that would be fun? A year or two of Mo Salah in New Jersey? Come on.
He would be the banner name to restore some heat to the Red Bulls that's been lacking. And maybe that win over Columbus, was that the biggest game we've seen in
Robert, need I remind you that the global head of football for Red Bull knows Mo Salah just a little bit. Knows him just a little bit.
Sure does. What's his name?
Jurgen something. Jurgen Klopp?
Yeah, that's the one.
Klopp. It's Klopp. It's clearly Klopp.
That would be quite the reunion. Klopp ahead of Red Bulls and Salah bombing down the wing at Red Bull Stadium in New Jersey, not New York. Interesting times. Give us a comment. What do you feel? What do you think about a possible come across the ocean for Mohamed Salah? Give us a comment, or hit us up on X or Instagram. Mo Salah and MLS. That has a pretty entertaining ring to it. Be sure to like and subscribe Morning Kick Around on YouTube. We've been averaging between 70 and 80 new subscribers each week. So we are well on our way of 800. First big goal for the subscriber hauling. And then if you want to write us a note, show us all the people, like Nate in the comments, show all the people that you've been telling about the show. We sure did love seeing that. Let's take a break, take a breath, and we're going to come right back with Monday's Hot Topic. All right. It was a weekend full of upsets, and amongst that was pushing Major League Soccer's #1 seeds in the East with Miami and the West with LAFC. Both got forced into a Game 3. Did you see that coming, Jason?
I did not. I did not. I was watching that match in Atlanta. I think we talked about this last week, Robert. We said, which one were you more interested in? Which one would you watch if you had to pick one? Columbus going to Red Bull Arena, down a game, trying to get back and repeat as champions, or Inter Miami, Lionel Messi and his crew going to Atlanta, 70,000 people expected in that building with Atlanta's season on the line. And I picked Miami, and I think I was vindicated in my choice, Robert, because that game had a lot going on. It was interesting. It was dramatic. It had energy to it. Obviously, in the end, Atlanta finds the goal from Jean de Silva to win the match and push the series back to Fort Lauderdale. We're now into Miami season, and their chance at the double is on the line in the first round. I mean, that's incredible drama. That was amazing, and I didn't see it coming. I did not.
No, that crowd was spectacular in Atlanta too. A sellout, or a very near sellout, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It was good to see. It was back in the days of Tata Martino era, in a way of, I had, the echoes of El Moran and Joseph Martinez.
Yeah.
Seeing the scenes down there. And the winner, Jean de Silva, his stat line absolutely hilarious. 1 minute played, 1 shot taken, and 1 goal scored.
Sometimes when a player scores a goal, dramatic or otherwise, and they take their shirt off, and everybody knows that the rule is yellow card immediate for taking off your shirt. Sometimes you're like, God, man, what are you doing? Don't do that. You're just hurting yourself. Maybe that's going to be an issue down the line. Jean de Silva had every right in the world. And not just because the guy was incredibly physically fit, but because he had scored that goal. Did you see Uncle Arthur and Garth Lagerwey going nuts in the box? Uncle Arthur, who can barely get his arms up anymore. Shout out to Uncle Arthur, latter stages of his life, but he was feeling it. Energy was on 11 at Mercedes-Benz. And, if you're neutral in that situation, right? If you're watching that game as somebody who doesn't have an interest in whether or not Miami proceeds or Atlanta proceeds, if you're just an American soccer fan, just an MLS fan, those are the moments we want. Those are the moments that will help sell the game. It's Atlanta going bonkers. Johnny Silva in the corner with his shirt off. Images that go hard. Uncle Arthur pumping his arms in the box. Garth Lagerwey jumping up and down. And Lionel Messi, the best player in the world, the greatest player perhaps of all time, clearly dismayed by the result and walking off morose back to the locker room, knowing that if he's going to win a title in MLS, because this is how we measure it, it's not the points in the regular season, and Leo knows this, it's that trophy at the end of the tournament, they have to win in Fort Lauderdale in Game 3.
Credit to the TV crew, that those final few moments with the goal, and then they had the ISO shot when the lights turned out in the stadium with Silva shirt off, ISO shot. And then, like you said, the shots up into the boxes, that was just, that's epic television right there. And there was lots of just action and eventful moments throughout the entire game. And it started with the oddity that was Miami's goal. American veteran goalkeeper Brad Guzan looks, he caught a ball, looks to spring a quick counterattack. And then the ball came out of his hands. It kind of looked like a foul, but on replay, it wasn't a foul. It was an odd moment. Then The Miami player chips it and gets their one goal and gets ahead early. And that had quite a few people scratching their heads.
Yeah, look, it felt like a foul. It looked like interference on the part of Miami, but you go back and look at it, and it just seems to be, and I don't know that we have Brad Guzan explaining it in the aftermath, but it seems to me that Brad Guzan was going to take this quick kick. There's a lot of bodies around him in the box. A Miami player kind of moves, on his left side, kind of from behind. My guess is the peripheral vision of Brad Guzan caught the Miami player coming that way. There was just this hesitation, like maybe I'm going to run into him. Maybe he's going to try to take the ball from me. I've got to adjust. And then what ends up happening, and Brad Guzan this is not unusual for him. He dropped the ball in Montreal and nearly put Atlanta United in a bad situation in that play-in game that even got them to this moment. And I think he just dropped the ball. I think he just was like, what am I doing? And it was just a spastic moment that led to an easy goal for Inter Miami. And credit to Atlanta that was the only goal that Miami was able to generate on the day.
I saw a little bit of panic for the first time, or definite concern I've seen from Miami in this whole postseason, or just this late season run, when I think it was Moranchuk had a turnaround volley that Calendar had to tip onto the crossbar. That was an incredible moment. Just the athleticism to turn and get his leg that high and rocket that Miami definitely, had the look of like, we're really in a battle here. This isn't going to be easy. And then there were some moments Miami going forward too. They did create some chances. Yes. Guzan had a couple of saves, but there was one moment I think Suarez took a corner and went all the way over to the far side of the box, and Messi one time volley from the corner almost snuck in. Like there was some spectacular moments throughout this entire match. Like there was, bang for the buck in Atlanta on Saturday.
Yeah, look, I mean, even the goal, from Atlanta, the first one from Williams, that's just a perfectly placed ball that the center back gets on the end of to give Atlanta United the equalizer after Martinez had scored the strange goal from Guzan's drop. Lionel Messi wasn't sharp. He wasn't sharp in this game, and he didn't. There were moments, but I think
chances. I mean, there was also an offside goal right before the winner too.
Yeah, there were some things that happened at Atlanta United. But let's just remind everybody. And I'm watching I say that Lionel Messi wasn't sharp. I'm watching him play a cross-field ball about 40 yards on a dime. So, he can obviously do those things even when he's not having his best day in front of goal. This is a team in Atlanta that seems to be, you mentioned that whether or not Red Bull were Columbus's bogey team, Atlanta's got something when they play Miami. Right? And coming into this series, they hadn't lost to Miami this season. And I'm not sure there's anybody else in the league that could have said that. So, they for whatever reason, Atlanta isn't scared. They're not awed by the Barca boys or anything that Miami brings to the table.
Before we move on, do you think that Miami has anything to worry about at home next weekend?
Yeah, I think it will be a difficult game. I mean, I could very easily see it going to penalties. I mean, I think there will probably be goals. I imagine it won't be a goalless draw through 90 minutes. Maybe like, I don't know, 1-1, 2-2, something like that. And then we go to penalty kicks. I could very easily see that. I still think Miami's going to get through, but I'm not feeling as confident about that before the series started. I'm not feeling as confident after watching what happened in Columbus, or to Columbus, rather.
Switching over to the Western Conference, the number 1 seed in the West, Los Angeles Football Club, pushed to a game 3 themselves. Vancouver Whitecaps take them to the woodshed 3-0. Ryan Gold, the Scotsman, on fire, gets the winner here, and that was his 6th goal in 4 games.
No, he's on fire. He's very good. Vancouver was never going to be a pushover. I mean, LAFC, we know what they can do on the break. We know that they have weapons. I came into this playoff season thinking, all right, LAFC is pretty good, but I like the Galaxy a little bit more than LAFC. And I think both of them are flawed teams. I don't think either one of them you can say, well, they got everything working for them. There's some defensive questions for the Galaxy, for example. LAFC, if they don't get those opportunities on the break, are they as dangerous? Can they really break you down? Those kind of things. In this situation, Vinny Sartini is a very smart coach. He knows how to utilize the weapons that he has, which none of them jump off the page. Ryan Gauld, it was probably under the radar a little bit more than he should have been this season. I don't know where he would have, you talk about your MVP candidates, 4 or 5 on that list, maybe. But had an incredible year, right? And I think that while I still expect LAFC to get through, it could very easily be the same kind of situation that I just talked about with Miami, where we end up with a very tight game. It's 1-1 going into the final stages of the match, and either there's a winner, somebody finds a winner, and I would bet on LAFC in that situation, but you don't know. And then again, penalty kick shootout. It is the great equalizer when we get to this place.
So the game 3s coming up this next weekend, LAFC versus Vancouver in LA late Friday night, and then that Miami versus Atlanta decider on the Saturday. Responding to some comments, don't worry, Henry, we're coming to you. He's already said ciao, said we don't look like we're talking about the comments. He made note that Miami didn't look comfortable on the turf. And do you think that LAFC is good enough to make a full run?
No, I think he's talking about the Galaxy because he mentions LAFC, Columbus lost except for the LA, meaning the Galaxy. I mean, the Galaxy took care of their business, right? They didn't mess around. They went to Colorado and they thumped the Rapids. And I saw that Greg Vanney said they're going to have to schedule some sort of friendly or maybe intra-squad thing. They're going to have to play some sort of game that feels like an actual match between now and when they start the next round, because they don't get the third game, and then we have the international break, right? So their next match in this tournament isn't for a while, and it is a problem that Major League Soccer hasn't been able to figure out what to do about the November international break and how it sort of affects the schedule. I think Bruce Arena was on the record a couple of years ago when the Revs were the number 1 overall seed saying, hey, this stinks. This doesn't help us. How are we supposed to go win a title when we've got this long layoff? LAFC or LA Galaxy, rather, after Minnesota United had already won their series too, of course, they play Minnesota, the 23rd of November. I mean, do I have that right? That's a long time from now, Robert.
Yeah, you're right. It's 20 days from today.
20 days. That's a long way. Let's see. Henry also in here. We think it'll be a Miami versus LA final. I'm assuming he means the Galaxy again. You can clear that up for me, Henry. I do have Miami getting through. I just think that they are that good. And why would I doubt these players who have this experience winning Champions Leagues, lots of them, not all of them, of course, but several of them winning Champions Leagues and La Liga titles and those kind of things, World Cup titles in the case of Lionel Messi, and Spanish players too winning World Cup. So I think they're probably going to be fine. So I do think it'll be a Miami LA situation. Which LA team is a little bit up in the air, but the Galaxy look better to me.
Thank you for your comments, guys. That hot topic today, MLS proving to be extremely competitive in the postseason. The top seeds pushed to the brink. Game 3s coming up this weekend. Be sure to like and subscribe. Morning Kick Around. That is the numero uno way to help us expand the show and make it bigger and bigger, make it grow and grow. The more viewers and the more participation, the better the show gets.
Robert, we're going to have to work on your pronunciation. I am in Puerto Rico. I can't go around saying numero uno. People will probably slap me if I did that while I was here in my wife's home country, on my wife's island. So I will, we may have to have a little, we can do a session. We'll get Robert's Spanish pronunciation just a little bit better.
Yeah, since joining the show, there's been some learning curves for old Roberto Kerr here. I seem to need improvement on my Espanol. Tell me, what is the proper way to say number 1?
Oh man, you just have to think about the vowels. Numero uno, not numero. But that's okay. That's okay. But it's a learning process. We don't have to get into it right now.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to practice my Spanish, and we'll be right back with today's big question. Monday's big question. We just took in a whole weekend of MLS Cup playoffs, and something stood out. There was a moment of significant villainy this weekend. Seattle versus Houston. Hector Herrera
I like it. I like
got
the
himself
attempt.
a red
like it.
card for bashing a guy and then spitting at the ref. Question is, do we need more villains in Major League Soccer?
I think we need personality in MLS. I don't think there's any denying that. I don't know that if we have more villains, that suddenly makes the league so much more compelling, and that is the difference maker for MLS when it comes to popularity necessarily. But man, yeah, at times in its history, and I think you would probably agree with me, Robert, MLS has been pretty boring, right?
It is tame. It can be.
It can be tame. It can be boring. There was a period where every team felt like a carbon copy of the of other teams, right? There wasn't a lot to differentiate, and that had a lot to do with the squad, the mechanisms by which teams could build their squads. There wasn't a lot of leeway within the salary budget. That's obviously changed. We progressed on that front. I think a lot of us would like to see Major League Soccer be more aggressive in those areas, please. Be more aggressive. I know we're talking about this calendar change and whether that's coming. That would certainly be interesting to see how that plays out. But if you are going to do that, and even if you aren't, but if you are going to do that, if you're going to change your calendar and now you are competing for the bulk of your regular season for attention with the NFL, with the biggest sport in this country, with the NBA through that entire period, if you're doing that, you want to have stories that you can tell. You want to have narratives. Now, it's weird as a fan of soccer and as somebody who teaches my kids good manners and wants my kids to be respectful of their opponents. It's weird for me to say, hey, we need more villains. We need more people doing things like what Hector Herrera did in that game yesterday between Houston and Seattle. But I want that stuff. I occasionally, I don't want anybody to go out and to intentionally try to injure an opponent. I don't want bodily harm to be part of this story.
No. But
I definitely think, think about how compelling the Premier League was and how important it was to have Jose Mourinho at Chelsea during an era when the Premier League was on the rise globally, not just because they had good players. They had teams with history like United or Arsenal, but because they had characters and storylines and these things, you had this battle. It was Alex Ferguson versus Jose Mourinho versus Arsene Wenger. I mean, there were constantly things coming out in the media and the press that were interesting. Mourinho was saying crazy things or things that were compelling. He's still doing that. He's doing that in Turkey, trying to turn the Super League into a monster. That stuff we lack. Well, maybe it's fair to say that there are some of those things happening and that the media coverage of the league doesn't allow for it to have the same sort of impact because we're just not there yet on sort of, how much of this is a chicken and an egg problem, Robert, where the more popular the league is, the more these stories get told. And you have these stories, but until the league gets popular, you can't get the coverage. But if the league doesn't have these stories, does the league get popular? Those kind of things are really kind of difficult to know.
Yeah, that's interesting that you put it like that and you kind of put it in that sort of context, because when I was watching it back to try to see the incident more, because Hector Herrera comes driving in, smashes into the Seattle player, and then something off camera happens. Then there's the red card after VAR, and then when in the replay, the YouTube highlights from MLS, they kind of cut the explanation short, not saying whether the red card was due to the foul or due to the sportsmanship of spitting at the referee. And you say, if that is an external highlight package from an ESPN or from a different network, do they dive deep and dig into what the heck is Hector Herrera doing here?
Right.
Because that I mean, it's not a good look. That is dirty. He sneers at the ref and spits at him.
MLS has had a problem for years, and I imagine there's still a little bit of this happening where they are sort of softening the image publicly, or they cut out some of the more controversial things from a highlight package. Or this is just protecting the image of the league. In this case, I did find it. I think I found it through OneFootball pretty simply. I don't know, a tweet or something, and it takes me to their website, and it's there. It's the referee after Hector Herrera kicks the Seattle player from behind. There's clearly a foul there. I'm imagining that what happens is he has the interaction with the referee. He walks by the referee. He does what he does. The VAR official is like, we need to go back and look at this. I think we have a red card incident. They go back because you can't, this is clearly one of those situations where the yellow card is warranted for the foul. It's a kick from behind. It's a pretty clear yellow card by the laws of the game. And then Ache, expressing his disgust, does a what is dissent, essentially. Like, it's dissent to spit at the feet of the referee. It's the other part of this that I love, right? I don't know if he thought in his head, well, I can't spit at the referee. That's clearly really bad. But what I can do is spit towards the feet of the referee and show my disgust like I'm some sort of 17th century landowner who's, gentry, who's upset about I don't know. It's very funny to be like, puh, at the feet of the referee. The referee did say after the review that his red card was because of spitting. I mean, he said the word spitting in his explanation, which is the thing that MLS is doing with the microphone, which we don't get from the Premier League and some of these other competitions. I don't know that I love it every time, but in this case, it was. He got a red card because he spit at the referee, and it was well deserved. And I don't think if you're a Houston fan, you're happy with Hector Herrera today. Like, you're mad at him, you're angry.
Didn't help his team.
Something stupid, but he is now, and who knows what his future looks like in Houston, not just because of this, but because of his age. It is one of those situations where it's like, wow, okay, he's going to get that villainous heat, which he probably already had in a lot of American cities anyway because of his Mexico past.
Certainly.
But this is a story. This is sort of that it feels kind of sordid, but it's part of what makes sports fascinating, that you never know, and that there can always be these kind of things. It's not just the incredible performance that elevates, that lifts us. It can also be the, for lack of a better way of describing it, the sort of basic drama of something like that pro wrestling provides. But in this case, it's completely unscripted. You have no idea that this stuff is going to happen until it does. And then it's like, oh my God, what did he just do? Right? It's Jean de Silva scoring the winner against Miami to push Atlanta to a third game in front of 70,000 and them going bonkers. And then it's also sports and soccer, and our game is also this.
Herrera's behavior and, the villainy that we're describing, it's also part of personality to make it more interesting, and also, pushes the envelope a little bit of what you could possibly get from the league, and maybe just push the league forward in general. That's one of the reasons why people liked Zlatan, was because he was not only an amazing player, but he had some of the dark arts, and he didn't play by the MLS communications rules. Like, he pushed the league and it kind of like, pointed out the shortcomings.
No, I mean, he's a character, right? He's a cartoon character, Zlatan, but again, you kind of roll with it partly because he owns it so well. I will say that, when it comes to this kind of stuff on the part of Herrera, it is, again, it's not, if you're running the league, it's not the thing you want to happen, because you think of that as a negative. It is a bad look. It is, oh, we've got players spitting at referees. That's horrible. But now we got to suspend. He's going to be suspended. He's going to miss games to start the year next year for Houston, if and when he comes back. That's going to happen. And that's the right thing from a competitive standpoint. But if we're talking about this from a different level, an entertainment value level, in 2024, when there are so many options, when there's so many things you can go and do, I can sit and scroll through TikTok for 8 hours instead of watching a soccer game, instead of doing anything. But this is the kind of thing that will make TikTok, right? This is the kind of thing that will kind of perhaps break through some of the noise that is out there. And it's not traditionally the way sports were sold, right? You supported your club, your team, your hometown outfit. You wanted them to win. You had that joy or that heartache when it didn't happen. But now, especially now, right, with the talking head shows, and we're one of them, Robert. We're a show that is based on trying to find the compelling things in soccer and talk about them. And if we had a Thomas Tuchel Antonio Conte moment happened in Major League Soccer, we'd be talking about that. Right? If that had happened now, we'd be talking about that. That would be one of our stories of the day. And that makes sports more compelling. You can't force it. It has to be natural. It has to be the kind of thing that players and coaches and the figures around the game do organically, naturally. But when it does happen, man, it makes the league more interesting.
I mentioned Zlatan earlier. Are there any other names of characters or villains from MLS past that you can think of that were kind of fun for you?
Well, I'd love to know if anybody has villains right now. Now, obviously, this is partly dictated by who you support. So if you are on one side of a rivalry, a player on the other side could be a villain. I think there are MLS fans, diehards, who care very much about their teams, who think Lionel Messi is a villain in this league. Sure. I really do, which is, that is defensible on some level. But if we're going to say villains, I mean, I hate to do it because it feels like we're just, ganging up a little bit on the Mexican internationals that have played in this league. But Rafa Marquez was a villain in Major League Soccer. I go back and watch. He did something in a playoff game. I'm trying to remember what that was. He did something in a playoff game when he was with the Red Bulls that got him suspended the next year. That now I'm going to have to. It's in there somewhere. It's rattling around the back of my head. I'm going to have to go look at that. We got the big cheesy Mac saying Leonard on the earthquakes. There were a couple of quakes who were that is throwing me back a little bit. Steven Lennart was part of the Bash Brothers the Quakes had. I think Alan Gordon was part of that for a little while.
Obviously, Alan Gordon's a good shout.
I mean, I think people thought of Alan Gordon as a bit of a villain. I would say that's probably fair. Man, there are some. I'm trying to think of some other figures that were villainous. And this is, again, there's a lot of ton that sort of jump out immediately that you're like, yeah, that guy, really hated that guy. He played this way or that way. There were some dirty players in Major League Soccer in the history. So I don't know. This is something the league has kind of missed on. I think managers as villains, like sort of they just naturally slide into that role if they are vocal, if they have egos, if they are successful on some level. You can't really be a villain if you're not successful because who cares about you? I mean, I think the league needs more of that stuff.
Do you think that maybe because of his success, do you think that Bruce Arena would be, a villain to some degree?
For sure. I think the way that Bruce carries himself, he's sort of like, well, whatever happens mentality rubs some people the wrong way. I think he can be gruff. I think he can be dismissive, particularly of reporters and questions and things like that. He is somewhat intimidating, Bruce Arena. So yeah, he could absolutely be a villain. I think Bob Bradley's an interesting one, by the way. Bob Bradley is kind of a gruff guy too, but I don't know that anybody really thought of him as a villain at any point. He was just kind of this really earnest, very intense dude that you're like, oh, okay, Bob. Go.
Who's asking those questions?
Yeah, that stuff
that comes immediately to mind. But yeah, I never was like put out by him. I like that he was a little bit abrasive and did things his way and didn't seem to at least publicly question his own methods. Like he was who he was. He was going to run his team like he was going to. And if you had something to say about that, he'd tell you to stuff it, so to speak. Yeah. And that doesn't necessarily make you a villain, but throw those in the chat, guys. If you have any more that come to mind, scanning our minds, trying to find the villains in MLS history. I guess to some degree, like some people view Messi that way. Maybe some people felt that way about Beckham back in the day.
Oh, absolutely. Well, remember, David Beckham arrived in Los Angeles and then acted like he didn't really want to be there, kept trying to leave, went on loan, didn't really put the effort in. Had a moment or two when he was on the road with the Galaxy. I think one famously happened in Kansas City where he had some interactions with fans that were not comfortable. So 100% David Beckham could rank as a villain. Now he's just a cologne salesman who gets excited about Messi goals, I guess. I don't know. What is his role? That David Beckham. He can't be is he a villain now while part of the Inter Miami family?
He's more of an ambassador, I would say now. I mean, does he do anything that really rubs people the wrong way? He's trying to ingratiate himself and his team as much as possible at this point, it seems.
Yeah, now he's memed when his documentary comes out and his wife is talking about her
regular
her,
grown
her
youth.
regular upbringing, and her husband pops his head in and says, "Wasn't it a Rolls Royce that you were going to school in?" So it's very
Yeah, him being funny is actually probably his most endearing moments. That moment, and when he was on Ollie G back in the day, that was a funny clip. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
yeah.
But thanks to everyone for joining us. Shout out to the viewers in the audience from the West Coast getting up extremely early to join the show live. Appreciate you guys out there. Thank you for following along. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm as guilty as anyone. I watch a whole lot of YouTube. Don't hit the subscribe button, but now I'm on the inside. Recognize how darn important it is. Hit the subscribe button on the Morning Kick Around YouTube.
Do it.
And get a hold of us on social media, X
Do
and
it.
Instagram, M Kick Around on those social medias. If you want to write us a note like Nate did, showing his receipts of spreading the word about this program, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Got an exciting show lined up for Wednesday. There's Champions League. We're going to have our first guest to the program. So exciting stuff on the way. Shall that be it? You got any final words, or should we?
No, let's go. I'm done.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Until
Bye-bye.
Wednesday, everybody, enjoy your soccer.